I think that all of us, we have D.I.D, we suffered severe childhood trauma. And our main goal is just don't continue the cycle.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. It is Jenna with the D.I.D system, and we've got...
It is Asher from the A system. I am one of the co-hosts and currently the parent of a 5-year-old.
It's mostly Zach from Fragmented Psyche. I am the host of the system, and we have an 8-year-old.
All right, and we have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old. Yeah.
Are you okay?
Only some days. Only some days. The raging hormone.
I'm not looking forward to those days.
No, we were told. So here, we'll get right into talking about parenting. We were told, oh, you're so lucky you have boys. They're harder when they're children, but then as teenagers, they're easier. My mom had 2 girls, and we came from like raging trauma, and she was like, you're boys. Oh my God. They're so emotional and hormone. They are so emotional. They are not easier. That is just total sexist. It's a lot.
It is a lot. I'm really hoping April really picks up some of the slack in the teenage years that she's not picking up now.
Yeah, no, we got that just last night. So the Hubs and I are watching Game of Thrones because we're late to it. So we're back. We're watching Game of Thrones, and we hear boo, 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 and he was like, "Please, would you get that? Would you just see what he's doing in his room? Because I don't think I can handle it."
Yeah.
We're all one of the reasons I wanted to get y'all together is because we have kids of different ages. We have different situations, and I wanted to have a really varied kind of perspective on parenting and D.I.D. Because parenting is hard, period. Like the hardest thing you'll ever do. It's crazy. And then you add in like the most complex disorder on top of it. And it's just a fun house. So why don't we just go around and kind of talk about just in general, your experiences as a system and as a parent. And we got some questions that we'll get into later. So Zach, you look mostly awake. You want to?
Still my coffee. It's actually really interesting because I've thought a lot about it. When we first got diagnosed, our immediate concern was like, oh God, how am I going to raise my kid? Despite the fact that we'd been doing it for years, suddenly we would be a shitty parent, you know? So we did a lot of therapy around the system and being a parent. And it's kind of like having a whole team built in because my focus goes all over the place a lot. I am a grown toddler. Like I laugh at fart jokes and all of that. So I'm not the best at disciplining my kid when he's messed up. So that's a role Jackson's taken on, is making sure, you know, that Kalen's doing what he needs to do. And that's been a big part of it. And then also our concern was letting the littles play with our son, because then you have 2 unsupervised children essentially. So we'd placed in a rule that honestly has been like the best rule we've ever done in our system is littles are allowed to play with Kalen, but they're not allowed to be fronting around him without a big presence. So they have like an internal babysitter, which I think that's worked out pretty well.
We have a very similar in our system, and it's not just the littles. So we had a trauma holder that everyone was kind of sketched about, and they were not allowed anywhere near the front when our kids were out until, you know, there was enough presence elsewise to be like, how they doing? And they were so hyper vigilant because as a trauma holder, they were like, who's at the door? Who's around our kids? Mm-hmm. And the rest of the team was like, oh, okay. All right. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh yeah. It's the hyper vigilance is wild in a system. And especially when you get the protectors around, I don't know about y'all, but we can get awfully helicoptery of our son. We hover a bit much.
But I
So
think
mama bear.
I don't think that's necessarily like a bad thing. I think that all of us, we have D.I.D, we suffered severe childhood trauma, and our main goal is just don't continue the cycle.
Yes.
So like being over concerned sometimes, while being exhausting, is definitely something that I think anybody with trauma is that way.
It is, and it's hard for like those natural transitions as a kid grows up, because like Kalen will be 9 soon. So he's at that age where he's wanting a little bit more independence. He's wanting to play outside by himself with his friends. And it's so hard to not just be like blatantly watching him. It's the hypervigilance, like, well, we've tried to start giving him a little bit of independence. And by that, I mean, he plays right outside and we're like constantly peeking through the window to be like, no one took you, right? Okay, we're good. So hard to break away from that, like, gotta helicopter my little baby, to he's growing up a little bit and needs independence. And I'm like, but does he? But does he?
Yeah, because we've seen some of the worst that the world has to offer, and we know it's not going to spare a child. And so, absolutely, my son made a friend, and they're a little bit older, and I was like, look, I'm glad that you've got this new friend, but if they have any kind of romantic ideas, he was like, no, mom. Ew. I was like, no, no, no. Mom's going to come for them. Just so you know, like, no.
Oh, yeah. No, we're the worst about that. There was a couple of months ago, we have like a massive parking lot where Kaylin will like ride a scooter and stuff. And I was sitting outside watching him, but I was like behind a bush, and he's just riding on his scooter or whatever. And one of our neighbors that I'd never met came out, and he's a middle-aged white man, and came over and just started chatting with Kaylin. And we're like, why are you talking to my kid? He's like, now I've gotten to know him and he's harmless. But the immediate was like, I'm gonna murder you if you hurt my kid, you know, like immediately get into that.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? What do you want? But he's harmless. Now I know that.
So Asher, how about y'all? How has parenting in general just been for y'all?
Parenting a strong-willed child is a challenge in itself, and doing it with D.I.D adds another level. The big thing is working as a team within the system. It's just like when you're with your partner, how you guys have to work as a team to set certain boundaries and roles and guidelines of how you want to raise your child. It's the same thing within the system, just trying to get it throughout the system. Hey, these are the rules. These are what we want from parenting. Please stick to them if you're out. And getting everyone to stick to them is a different story, but just having the guidelines and the rules is something that's very, very important, and something that really, really helped us out.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
We have a well, Caleb wrote a poem called "We Are Mom," and it's basically like all of us are mom. It doesn't matter who's out. It's mom. That's us. And so we know that it's like if a system has a job, oh, this is our job. We are all mom. We all have to work together to make it happen.
Correct.
Now, so all of us had our kids before we knew we were a system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, and you were talking about like, oh no, am I a bad parent now? Like because we knew we had trauma background, like we did parenting classes. There was a local like social work program for people like that did like come into the home and do like parenting stuff. So we had a bunch of hands-on parenting stuff before we were even like in therapy for ourselves, because that was our concern. Like we wanted to make sure we could parent at all. And then like y'all, when we found out that we had D.I.D, we're like, what does this mean for our kids? Do we tell our kids? Like, how do we navigate this? And then realizing that we have already been navigating it. We just didn't have the label to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of times when people get the D.I.D diagnosis, the first thing they think is, oh, this is terrible. I'm not going to be able to live. They don't realize they've been living that way their entire life. The only thing changes, it has a label and it has a name, and now you know what you need to manage.
Exactly. Now you know, like, you have a direction for the kind of help you can get instead of just like, I don't know what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
So for y'all, you mentioned having the littles out and always having a big around, which we do as well. But that was like the tell for when we told our 13-year-old, I think he was almost 12 at the time, because we were like, they don't know, we'll just sell by. And then he was like, Mom, playful you is very different than business you. It's like a whole other person. And I was like, well,
Little
they
did
have
you
noticed
know.
the littles, right? Because littles, it was honestly super helpful for me as a parent because I didn't have any association to who I was as a kid, like none. And so when Jonathan and I would be mad about something the kids would do, Lil would be like, I would have done that same thing and I wouldn't have thought that that was a bad idea. So I think you're being a little harsh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love it when stuff like that pipes up, though.
Right?
You're like, I would never. And someone's like, actually, you did, and worse.
Yes. So how is it, Asher, do y'all's littles come out and play as well? Or how do y'all handle that?
The one little that is active, little number one, we don't say her name online, is, I'll just be honest, severely traumatized. So she's scared of anybody. She is scared of other people. So playing with our son is very, very rare. And it's usually does not last a long time. They've sat on the couch and watched shows together and stuff like that. But Alex or Art is always watching, especially Art is always watching, ready to step in and help if needed.
That's how it is with Caleb, who's also a trauma holder and a little, was only fronting at night and after the kids were in bed and like very, very scared of what if the kids need us because, you know, with the trauma responses. And then one night Caleb was out and we hear little feet go running to the bathroom and instantly I'm in the front and I'm running to the bathroom. Hey, boys, I'm coming. And after that, then he wasn't afraid of fronting so much because he knew if something happened and we were needed to be in the parent mode, like there would be a switch and he didn't have to worry so much. But yeah, we get that.
A child being in distress instantly triggers protectors, like instantly. If our son cries, Alex is on it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Jackson's quick to come out if our kid's upset.
Yeah, is it the full on like who do I need to kill mode, or is it more like the like loving pillow come here mode?
It depends. If it's like someone has caused distress to our son, Jackson is up in there. But we have a new alter that split this year, which was interesting because she split for Kaylin, not for our system. And she's become the like mothering type. Yeah. It was, I didn't know that like that's a type of split that could happen, is a split that exists for an external source. So that was interesting, but she's very mothering. So she's the one that'll go to comfort because I'm also terrible at that.
Well, I know new alters form because of jobs and things like that. So why couldn't that also be a thing?
It totally makes sense. I just never thought about it, you know. I always figured like if my brain splits it's for me, like, you know, it's for whatever's happened to us in our life and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, yeah, she does stuff to, like, you know, she'll cook for us and help clean and all of that. But she couldn't give two shits about fronting for anything that we need. Like, but Kaylin starts crying or whimpering or expresses the mildest, like, she's there.
That's a great lead into some of the questions I got on TikTok.